Hey guys, it's Izzy and welcome back to today's video. I am going to be doing my August wrap up. Sorry if the lighting's a bit bad. I guess England has fully decided it's autumn and therefore will not give us any sun. So love that for me. It is currently the 27th of August, so I may well finish another book between now and the end of August, but I'll just tack it on to the September wrap up. And yeah, I didn't actually read a ton this month. I think I read like 15 books, which I mean is still a lot, but just like for me it's not a ton. I'm currently in the middle of like 4 books. I'm currently reading Girls of Storm and Shadow by Natasha Nagan, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, and Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills. Why am I reading 4 books, you ask? Good question. I don't know. But anyway, we're gonna get on with the video. Do I have anything to say? No. The book we're going to start with first is actually a book I did finish in like the last day of July or something, because I filmed my July wrap up early as well, so technically I read this in July, but it's in my August wrap up, so who really cares? That book was The Mercies by Kieran Millward Hargrave. Just gonna put this here. This is an adult book that is set in 1600s like Norway. Is it Norway? It's called something else, or like Sweden. It's a remote Norwegian island, and basically a fishing village is hit by a massive storm while all of the men are out fishing, and all of the men basically from this village are killed. And so the women have to start like trying to kind of fend for themselves and feed themselves and you know, do all the jobs that the men did before. And then like a year or so later, 2 years or so, I can't quite remember, a like religious man, what are they called, like I don't know, like a vicar, a pastor, I don't know church names, but he comes into their village with his wife who does not want to be married to him, and basically he is part of the like witch trials, and these women who are kind of fending for themselves are like suspicious and ungodly, and it follows 2 women. One is the religious man's wife, one is a woman who lives in this fishing village. They form a connection, a friendship, more than friendship, and yeah, it's kind of a very weird book to explain, but it was very good. I gave it 4 stars. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because it was rough. Like, it was dark. Like, I kind of was like getting through it and I was kind of like, okay, I'm just like ready for the happy ending now. Like, give it to me. I want it, please. There's so much suffering and sadness. Make it stop. She did not make it stop. And so, like, I didn't actually enjoy a lot of it because it was so sad. So it was like a really good book and a really well written book, but like it just made me want to cry. Beautiful book, would recommend reading it, but just know going in, it's not necessarily a very sad ending, but it's definitely not a happy ending, and I was not prepared, so I'm preparing you now. But yeah, it was sapphic, which was great, but I would have liked more of the sapphic content, but it was a very well written book and a very interesting time period. I then read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is, do people know what this is about? I don't know. It's a very weird sci-fi book about a man who goes into space because Earth is destroyed to make a like space highway. Yeah, okay, cool. Glad we've got that premise. And I gave this like 3.5-ish stars. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely what I needed after the very upsetting mercies, and so like I needed like a palate cleanser. I needed just to have some fun, and I definitely did have fun, and it was very weird, very entertaining. I mean, is it anything like super special? No, but it was written in like, I don't know, the 1970s, so it was then, and it was just really fun. It was really entertaining. It was really weird, but I enjoyed it. And if you want to read it, I would say go for it. I mean, do I have any hot takes? No, I had a good time. That's all. Next book I read, I gave 4.5 stars, was The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. This is a finished copy that was kindly sent to me by Hodder and Stoughton, and this is an adult sci-fi novel that follows three main characters. I'm blanking on their names, Leto, Hero, and First Sister, and basically in this world, this sci-fi world, the First Sister is like a confessional basically, so these women have their voices taken away from them and then become these kind of like religious people, and so like people will confess and like tell their sins to them because they can't share their secrets with anyone because they can't speak. And it follows her, and Leto is basically a soldier whose partner, Hero, has gone missing, and he is sent on a mission to kill Hero. It's like betrayed the cause. It's again a very hard book to explain, but it was phenomenal. I really, really loved it. Adult sci-fi is not super my thing. I enjoy it, but I tend to find it difficult to get into. But this was actually really, really entertaining. It was really like fast paced. There was so much action. The like fight scenes were done so well, and it's super queer. Like First Sister is like sapphic and Hero is non-binary, and that was done really well. I really loved that element, and yeah, it was so entertaining. I would highly recommend picking it up if you like sci-fi but you're not like super into sci-fi. I wouldn't be too scared of it. It was definitely like beginner friendly. It was just so engaging. I just loved it so much. I had such a good time reading it. Like it was one of those books where every time you like put it down, you just like want to pick it straight back up, and that's the kind of book I like. I then read The Exact Opposite of Okay by Laura Stephen. This was actually a really surprising read. Like, I thought I would enjoy it, but I actually enjoyed it a lot. I gave it like 4.5 stars, I think. It was kind of a hard book to rate because obviously like a 4.5 for like First Sister is like a very different 4.5 for this book. So I don't really know, but I really enjoyed it. It's a contemporary novel that follows our main character, Izzie, finally someone with the same name as me, and she is a senior in high school, and she is like very sex positive, like she has like casual sex, and one day a image of her, like an explicit image of her and a politician's son, is leaked in sort of like revenge porn style, and like it's picked up nationally because it's a politician's son, and so she has to kind of deal with the like slut shaming and everything that comes along with that. It was such a good book. It was just so addictive. It was told through like sort of blog post format, like it was a private blog, so it was kind of just like a diary basically, and it really allowed me to like connect with Izzie and get in her head, and I really liked that aspect of it. She just had such a like compelling voice. I thought it was really funny. I thought it was really poignant. I really loved, there was a lot of discussion around kind of friend zoning someone, I guess, and the fact that if a friend of yours is romantically interested in you, you don't have to be romantically interested in them. Like, it's not your fault if you don't have like romantic feelings for them. Like, you shouldn't feel bad just because they're nice and they like you. Like, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and I thought that was a really interesting discussion. And also, Izzie is living in kind of like poverty. Her parents died when she was young. She lives with her grandma, and her grandma has to work even though she's at like retiring age, and she can't really consider going to college because she can't afford it. So that was also really cool discussion around that, and overall it was just a really good read, and I would highly suggest picking it up. I had a good time. I then finally read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I gave this book 3 stars. It sadly was not exactly what I hoped for. This is a West African inspired fantasy novel that follows 2-ish main kind of 4 main characters, but the 2 main characters are Zaylee and Amari. Magic has disappeared, and one of the main characters, Amari, is a princess, and she discovers a scroll that can bring magic back to the land of Orisha, and her father, the king, wants to destroy it, and so she kind of leaves the palace as kind of like a fugitive and takes the scroll with her, and Zaylee like rescues her even though she doesn't really want to, and so they kind of set off this journey to perform this like ritual to try and bring magic back to the land of Orisha. And the other 2 main characters are Amari's brother and Zaylee's brother. So I really liked some aspects of it. Like, the climax to this book was god tier. Like, it was so good. I was like so invested. My main issue was with the romance. This is a chunky book. It's like 520 pages, and so many of those pages were taken up with romance, and it was like some of the most like forced romance I've like ever read about. It was so very clear, like, let's just pair up the characters for the sake of pairing them up, rather than the fact that they had any kind of romantic chemistry, or like, it was just so like weird, and just like there was just no chemistry between any of the romantic relationships, and I just hated the romance. And because so much time was spent on it, it really like decreased my enjoyment of the book, because it wasn't just a little bit of romance, like a lot of time was spent on it, and I just hated the romance. And I also do think the plot was quite slow, and that this could have been edited down quite a bit. I will be reading the second book because it definitely ended on an interesting note, and I do want to kind of see what happens next. But it was not as good as I was hoping. But to be fair, like, the amount of hype this book got, like, it's very hard to live up to that much hype. So like, I knew I probably wasn't gonna love it as much as the hype suggested. It was a good read, it just wasn't really anything super special for me. I then read an e-arc of The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea by Maggie Tokuda Hall, I think, hopefully is how you say it. And this book comes out September 1st, so by the time you're seeing this, this will probably be out. And this is a standalone YA fantasy that follows 2 main characters, Evelyn and Flora/Florian. In this fantasy world, Evelyn is like in the aristocracy and is very rich, and she is going on a voyage to where her prospective husband lives, and she gets on this boat, and it's actually a boat run by pirates, and basically they get all the rich people on board for a few months, and then after a few months, when they can no longer get back to shore, they like put them in boat jail. I don't know what it's called. And then when they get to their destination, they sell them as slaves. And so Flora/Florian is put in charge of protecting Evelyn while they're still pretending that this is a valid ship. And in the months that they spend together, they develop a relationship. And then when eventually Evelyn is put into boat jail, Flora/Florian has to kind of decide whether they want to leave their life on the ship and rescue both Evelyn and a mermaid that's been captured by the pirates. And Flora/Florian is gender fluid. They go by Florian as a pirate because it's safer to go as a boy. And then they also use she/her pronouns. So yeah, they're gender fluid, which was really cool. I have not seen much of that in literature. Really, the only other like gender fluid character I can think of is Alex from the Magnus Chase series by Rick Riordan. So I really enjoyed seeing that explored. I thought that was really cool and just something that isn't like represented enough. And Evelyn is sapphic. It's not, I think she's kind of like pansexual. She doesn't seem like too bothered whether Florian is Flora or Florian. And it was a really dark YA fantasy, and it talked a lot about some interesting topics like colonialism, gender and sexual identity, trauma, sexual assault, alcohol, substance abuse, and it was just really, really well done. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was just such a unique fantasy. I really liked that it was a standalone. I really like standalone fantasies, and they're not like done that often, so I really enjoyed that. And yeah, it was definitely one I would suggest picking up if you've had it on like your Goodreads TBR, or if what I just tried to explain sounded interesting. I would highly recommend picking it up. It was just yeah, a really cool book. The only thing was that it took me like a little bit to get into it, and I think it could have been a little bit shorter, but apart from that, really good time. The next book I read was Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. Are we surprised? No. I also got the signed copy of this because I can't be stopped. And this is just like a little novella that follows Nick and Charlie from Heartstopper and also Solitaire. And it was very cute. It was very, very, very cute. I really, really enjoyed it. It is writing rather than like a full graphic novel like Heartstopper is, but it does have cute illustrations in it as well, so that was really fun. For some reason I have the weirdest copy. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this in books, but like on loads of pages it looks like it's got like text over like some of it. I don't know what happened to my copy. It got mangled, and don't know how that happened. But yeah, it was a really cute read. It was 5 stars. I loved it just as kind of much as I love the Heartstopper graphic novels, which is a lot. And so it was really nice to read about, and it was really cool to kind of read actually from the perspective of Nick and Charlie, because in the graphic novel we don't get their perspective because it's a graphic novel. So I enjoyed that. That was a good time. It was just so sweet. I just love Nick and Charlie so much. The next book I read was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Finally, I know, it's taken me long enough. I tried to read it physically, I want to say in like 2018, I think. And I just couldn't get through like the first 100 pages. I was just so bored. But I read it this time via audiobook, and I actually liked it somewhat more than I thought I was going to. The last 50% was actually engaging to me. I liked the politics, I liked Jude as a main character, and I genuinely was entertained, which I didn't expect to be. I expected to hate it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, it was still just a 3-star read, but it was definitely better than I was expecting. Follows our main character Jude, who, when she is a child, is taken to the land of the Fae because her half-sister is a Fae, and her parents are killed, and they go and live with her half-sister's dad, who is like a very, I don't know, like politic person. And so then we follow her like 10 years later or something, when she's like, I don't know, 17, and she and her twin sister Taryn are human in this Fae world, and that can be very dangerous. And so Jude kind of goes to this like kill or get killed mentality, which we love to see it. Honestly, Jude could step on my throat and I'd thank her. Like, I am definitely in love with her. Like, she was just so like badass, and like she wasn't, I don't even know if she was like morally grey, but she was just like willing to do what needed to be done. And I really liked seeing that in a character. That was probably like my favourite part, was Jude as a character, because it's just not something we get to see, especially in female characters a lot, especially in YA, and it was just a really like fun character to follow. Also, I really hate Taryn, and I feel like she's gonna get more annoying in the second book, and like honestly I just want to punch her. Like honestly just want to punch her. And yeah, the politics were really interesting. I really liked, like I said, the second half of the book. The first half I didn't really care for, but the second half was good, and I do look forward to reading The Wicked King. So that was a pleasant surprise. I then read Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is a adult romance novel, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. My main problem was it was just a bit long, and so it just kind of got a bit dragged out for me, and so I just didn't enjoy it as much, because I was just kind of like, there were just some scenes and chapters that just could have been cut and it would have made it a better book. But this is a book that has kind of similar vibes to Red, White and Royal Blue, but like a British version. Basically, this son of a like rock and roll musician works for a dung beetle charity, and he's kind of got this public image that's not too great. He is seen as kind of very messy, and so he wants a boyfriend who is like professional and like has a good kind of image to like kind of save his public image. In comes Oliver, and so what's the main character called? Luke and Oliver fake date. Luke so he can improve his public image, and Oliver so that he can take Luke to a work function, I think is why he wants to do it. Can't quite remember. But yeah, it was really funny. It was a really good time. Like I said, it was just a bit long, and so that just kind of like detracted a bit from my enjoyment of it. But I really, really loved the relationship between Luke and Oliver. It was really sweet. It was kind of a bit hate to love, and there was just some really great discussions, and I just had a really good time. It did start to feel a bit repetitive, because they would kind of hate each other, then like each other a bit, and then go back to like kind of disliking each other, and it just kind of felt like we would have the same conversations again and again. So it was just a bit repetitive, but apart from that, it was a really good time, and I feel looking for something like relatively light and a good time, or if you liked Red, White and Royal Blue, I would suggest picking it up. It was a good time, and I believe Alexis Hall is trans. They're either like non-binary or gender fluid. I can't quite remember. I'll put it like on the screen because post edit Izzie will Google it. The next book I read, and probably my favourite book of the month, was We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee. This was very kindly sent to me by HMH Teens. This is an arc of it, and it comes out the first week of September at some point, so again, probably it will be out by the time you're seeing this video. And oh my god, this book was so good. Literally, I don't even need to tell you what it's about. Just go and buy it. Buy it. Buy it. Please. It's god tier. Honestly, it was so good and such a surprise. Like, I expected to like it, but it was just... it was so good. It's a historical fiction YA novel that follows 14 teenagers during World War II, and they are Japanese American teenagers who are put into internment camps after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. If you don't know, basically in World War II in America, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which was done by the Japanese people were kind of seen as like the enemy, and so they were put into these internment camps. They had to like sell all their homes and everything they owned and go and live in these really poor conditions for many years, and it kind of just follows these fictional teenagers, but in a very much real setting, and it's a very much a real story. Okay, sorry for the interruption. I had to briefly change memory card because my other one got full. Anyway, we see from all 14 perspectives, which I think was a genius idea by Tracy Chee, because this is a kind of historical event that is not talked about much, and we don't hear much of the stories from this kind of area of World War II, and I think there were so many different ways for the Japanese people who were living that situation, for them to view it, and so many different ways for them to feel about it, and not only just the teenagers but their parents and their family, who were like the first Japanese people to come to America as like citizens, and I just thought it was incredible. All the characters were so interesting. The friendship between them all was so lovely. There was, towards the end of the book, something tragic happens, and when I say I sobbed, I was full on weeping, like weeping. Like, I could barely even read the book because I was crying so hard, because like she made me care so much about these characters and about their bond, like all the different bonds between them, romantic, platonic, familial, and it was just genius. And I just think it's just such an incredible book, and I have always been interested in the kind of story of the Japanese American citizens since I learned about Japanese internment camps a couple of years ago, and I kind of like looked into it a bit, but there really aren't that many books written about it, especially YA books. I'm not sure if there are any, certainly not that I've come across, and it's just so, like, I learned so much, and it was so interesting in a oh that's terrible kind of way, but still so fascinating, and I just can't sing this book's praises enough. Like, it was so good. It was just so good. I then sadly read a 1-star book, so we went from 5-star to 1-star real quick, and that was Forget This Ever Happened by Cassandra Rose Clark. This was an arc that was kindly sent to me by Holiday House. This comes out in September as well. This is a... what even is this? Contemporary sci-fi novel that follows two main characters, Claire and Julie. Julie lives in Indianola, this made-up town, and Claire has come to Indianola for the summer to look after her sick grandmother, and it's also set in 1993. And basically there's this secret of Indianola, which is that monsters exist in Indianola, but the thing is, if you leave the town, then you forget. Like the secret is kind of just like wiped from your memory. And so Claire and Julie kind of come together to like figure out their like family's history, and then there's some sci-fi element thing, mystery. They have to like kind of save the town. It was so, oh, I really hated it. I really just hated it. It was just so boring. It was so boring. I had no interest in the mystery, like, whatsoever. It was so boring. The characters were the blandest characters I've read about in a long time. And this book was sapphic, which usually for me means I'm gonna love it. Like, even if the rest of the book isn't great, if it's got a sapphic romance, I'm probably gonna be into it. And I didn't even want them to get together. I was like, oh, please stop thinking about each other, because it was so boring and there was no chemistry, and oh, I just did not like it. And like Claire comes into town, and like the first like person she meets, she's like suspicious of, and for no reason. And it's like throughout the book she's so like suspicious of everything that had no like alarm bells, and it was so dumb because she was just like, oh, this seems weird when it wasn't weird, and yet when weird things happened, she she was just like, I'm sure that's normal. And it's like, how can you be simultaneously the most suspicious person and the dumbest person at the same time? Like, it truly defies belief. So this, as you can tell, was a disappointment. I feel really bad because I got an arc of it and like I wanted to love it, but oh, it was just not for me. If you think it might be for you though, I wouldn't dissuade you from reading it. I just hated it. The next book I read was also an arc, and that is Even If We Break by Marieke Nijkamp. This also comes out in September. I don't remember when, but it comes out in September, and I gave this book 4 stars. I've already read it with Sasha, and we both gave it 4 stars. Had a really good time. It's a YA thriller that follows 5? Is there 5 of them? Yeah, 5 teenagers who have kind of grown apart, who used to be best friends, and for one like final weekend they're going to a cabin to play this like role-playing game that they made up, that they've been playing for many years, and they kind of go to this cabin for like one last hurrah before they kind of go their separate ways and go to college, etc. And then they get to this cabin and murder, mystery, intrigue, and I really love this book, mainly because it's written by a disabled author and has 2 characters, one who has arthritis and uses crutches, and another one who has chronic pain and suffers from like substance abuse. And I just loved that representation. Like, it made me feel so connected to these characters. Like, it's just not something I read about much, and this was such good disability representation. I feel like sometimes authors will like say, oh, this character has a cane or uses crutches or something, and will mention it like once or twice and just like doesn't actually think about what that character would do if, like going up a mountain on crutches. Like, it was just so detailed. She just put so much thought into kind of the effects everything that was happening in the book would have on these disabled characters. And I also really liked that this is a thriller, like not horror, but it's kind of like a survival situation, and I never see characters who are disabled in these kind of books or these kind of stories, movies, whatever. And it was really exciting because I never really connect with those stories a whole lot because I use a wheelchair, I've used crutches, like I'm disabled myself, and so I'm always like, I would die in 2 seconds in that situation. Like, I can never imagine myself in that situation, so it was really cool to actually have people be disabled in it and like try and stay alive, because I'm like, wow, maybe I could make it through a cabin horror story. And it also had a bunch of queer rep, like the character with arthritis is trans, and one of the other characters is non-binary, and there's like romance between them, and that was really cool. And it was just really good. The reveal wasn't like amazing, but it was really interesting. It was just really engaging. I loved the characters, I loved the dynamic, I loved the story. It was just a really good time, and I would highly recommend picking it up. I then decided it was time. It was time to reread King of Crows. Was this a good decision? No. Because I decided I would annotate it. And I would tab it. Let me just show you how many tabs I put into this thing. Honestly, might as well have highlighted the entire damn book, because I'm sorry. Is Izzie okay? No, she's not. Do I need to tell you what this book is about? My dog is also clearly a big Diviners fan. If you could just be quiet though, please. Thank you. The Diviner series. This is the fourth and final book in the Diviner series. It came out in February. I read an e-arc of it in January. I cried for like 3 hours, had a mental breakdown, reread it, and I think I cried more, if that's humanly possible. I thought I cried a lot when I read We Are Not Free, but that was nothing compared to the utter despair and the emotions. Here's me after reading it. I cried more than I'm pretty sure at all my therapy sessions combined. And that's talking about my PTSD, and I still cried so much of this. I just love it. In case you want to know, my colour code: blue was cool foreshadowing, pink was just things I loved, yellow was character moments and like character interactions that I loved, orange was just beautiful writing, and green was emotions. It's predominantly green tabs. I think my family thought I was losing my mind, which, were they wrong? No, they were not wrong. Izzie needs an intervention, because I literally went through like 2 packets of tabs, like no joke. Like, honestly, will I ever be able to read this book without crying? No. Like, I physically cannot get through this book without crying. Like, I would die for every character in this book. Like, literally would die for all of them, except Jericho. I just... why am I like this? Why do I have this many emotions? I don't know. The next book I read was The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This is a sapphic adult romance novel that's like historical fiction about 2 women who come together to try and do science, but men don't want them to. They fall in love. It's great. 4 stars. Loved it. Read it. It was a great sapphic romance, and I loved them so much. And it was so great. I just loved it. It was such a good sapphic romance. And the final book I read, because this has been going on way too long, was Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. I listened to the audiobook via Libro FM. It was a great audiobook, would highly recommend. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a debut YA fantasy that I adored. It was so unique. It was so interesting. It's basically a book that follows our main character. What is your name? What is your name? What is your... Tarasai. And Tarasai lives in this fantasy world where the emperor has to have 12 people join their council so that they can be impervious to the 13 kinds of death that exist in this world. And so once you have your 12 members of your council, you can only die by old age or one of your council members killing you. And in order to become part of the council, you have to love the emperor. It doesn't have to be romantically, you just have to love them. And once you're part of the council, you can speak telepathically. It's really cool. Basically, Tarasai is sent to join the emperor's council, but her mother has basically brainwashed her so that when she loves the emperor, she'll kill him. And she doesn't know that this is in her brain until she loves the emperor and then wants to murder him. It was such a unique fantasy, so engaging, so interesting. I loved it so much. Honestly, pick it up. It was so worth the read. It was just so unique. It was one of the most interesting, really just fascinating fantasy worlds I've read about in a long time. Tarasai was a really interesting character. My only kind of complaint was that I wanted more development between all of the council. We only really had a lot of information about 5 of them, and so I just really wanted the 12 of them to be a lot more fleshed out and the dynamics between them to be a lot more fleshed out. But apart from that, perfect. Loved it. It was so good. So yes, those are all the books I read. I thought this was going to be quick. Izzie can't shut up. That's my brand at this point. And yeah, I hope you got some books that you want to read out of this video. I've read some great ones, I read some not so great ones, and I cried a lot. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye!